Hey everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner and I have a very special guest in the corner. Would you like to unveil your secret identity?
Hello, I'm David Sobolov.
That sounded so cool. Sounded evil and like Russian.
Yeah, I play a lot of evil characters. It's true.
Well, now, a lot of the listeners there might not necessarily, know much about your roles, though we've tried to educate them throughout the week. But people have been hungover due to New Year's and things like that. So if we could go back in time to when you were in diapers, or maybe even later than that, what necessarily sparked your interest into acting?
Well, I was always interested in acting, but I grew up in a place where there really wasn't a lot of it. I grew up in a town called Windsor, Ontario, Canada, near Detroit. And I got into music. I was a French horn player. I played in little ensembles and pit orchestras, and I did that for a while. And then I ended up getting into singing, and I ended up touring with an a cappella group, and I started doing on-stage musicals. And an agent in Vancouver saw me, and he heard the deep voice, and he said, "You should go and work on cartoons and play villains." This was around 1993, 1994. I said, "Okay, sure, let's give that a shot." And it kind of took off, so that's how I got into it.
Now, when you say that because my knowledge on where places are, because I just recently went to Detroit. My places on where everything is really bad, but we could see Canada from the Ren Center in Detroit because we were invited
Yeah,
there.
exactly, right across the river.
Oh, okay. Because the entire time, because we have a Canadian on staff, and we were making jokes like, "Is he on that roof over there waving? Where are you?" So we were probably seeing you instead.
And the weird thing, you know that song where they go, "Born and raised in South Detroit." There's no South Detroit. South Detroit is Windsor, Canada.
I guess Canada just didn't rhyme with anything. I don't know.
Doesn't matter. It's a song. They're just having fun.
That's true. But it's very pretty. Like I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and so, all we see is desert and heat, but you guys actually have seasons and weather, which is kind of
Yeah,
nice.
well, now I live in Los Angeles, but it's kind of nice not to have to shovel the sunshine,
You
so to
really
speak.
don't, yeah, and you really don't get that much snow in California, from what I
No, and
know.
if we had snow in LA, this town would be in a lot of trouble.
That's true. I mean, everybody freaked out over Carmageddon, and that wasn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, Carmageddon when they people don't know that outside of LA, but they had to close one of our major freeways for a couple of days, and it all worked out. Everybody just stayed home.
Which was very wise. But now for, villains and things like that, when you got started in cartoons, did you find it difficult to just embrace like this evil sort of character type?
No, because it's a lot of fun. It's so opposite from who I am, but my voice really lends itself to it. So it's just I have a sense of play, and I just get into it, and it's a lot of fun. One of my first big roles was a show called Vortex that hardly anyone remembers. I'm sure it was 1996, and it was on Fox. And I played a very deliciously evil character, and I had a lot of fun with that. That was a good time. I was touring with an a cappella group when I got cast in that, and I had to hire a little bush plane to fly into a forest landing strip to pick me up and bring me back to Vancouver so I could do that.
Well, that's actually kind of interesting. So they didn't pay for it, I'm assuming.
No, no, I had to pay for it myself. But
Dang.
I was just starting to get going, and then I got this series, continuing role in a series, and I couldn't turn it down. So, in fact, that was a really expensive gig for me. I actually paid to do that gig because I had to pay all the other people in the quartet for the entire week of their wages, plus fly out of there on my own. So, basically, I was paying to do it, but it was worth it. It was my first big gig, so I had to do it.
Well, hopefully it led to other work and more work and more
It sure did.
work.
The director of that was Sue Blue, who later directed me in Beast Wars.
Now, I remember the McDonald's toys for those.
I don't. I'd love. Is there a depth charge? My character was depth charge. I would love to see if there's a McDonald's toy for that.
I would have to look in storage because I was one of those kids who kept all the McDonald's and Burger King's toys for some reason. So, but I do remember there being Beast Wars toys, and I was into that, and my brother made fun of me. He's like 11 years older than me, but he made fun of me because oh gosh, I don't, maybe I was like 7 or 8. And so he was like, girls can't play with that stuff. And I was like, what are you talking about? It's awesome.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because back when we did Vortec, they wanted to add another character toward the end of the first season, and I know the director had talks with them and said, "Oh, can't we make this a female character?" And I think the toy company actually said to her, "No, girls won't buy that. Girls won't buy the toy. If it's no, boys won't buy the toy if it's a female character." So they ended up making it another male character. I always call them testosterone because you usually get like one or two women in the show, and everybody else is a guy.
Well, it's funny because you kind of see this argument or this discussion a lot in like video games, for instance, where it's like all the girls are, only like derpy or getting kidnapped or they're skinny with the big boobies and they're wearing a thong, and all the guys are like macho big men and everything else. So I don't know, you see that argument all the time, but I think like a lot of girls throughout the years, I mean, since 1999 and so on and so forth, have really kind of gotten into stuff that guys are into, and guys have gotten into things that girls are into. I mean, look at My Little Pony.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm on Transformers Prime now, doing Shockwave, and Somali, who plays RC, it's a very strong female character, so we've got a great positive role model there. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I've seen on the net recently, there's a lot of people kind of laughing at the way women are portrayed in the comic books, and they'll do a drawing of like, oh, if men had to wear the costumes that the women wore, what they'd look like, and how silly it would look.
Yeah, I think there's a name for that. I think it's like the Hawkeye perspective or something
Oh, okay.
along those lines, because I think it started with Hawkeye as doing the poses.
Okay.
But yeah, it's interesting to see because I think some of the guys look great in those poses, so I don't know what's the problem.
Yeah, but good luck actually seeing them portrayed seriously, looking like that. It'll never happen. It's always a joke.
I know. Maybe one day, just for fun.
Maybe one day.
Well, now in terms of video games, though, have you seen that with you've been in video games for quite a few years, and
Mhm.
it kind of started out, quote unquote, as a boys' club, and I hate saying that because I grew up playing video games. I got my ColecoVision and my Atari, so it was never really a boys' club for me, but for some girls, they felt like that, and now it seems like it's opening up for some of those girls. So do you feel the same about that?
Well, I certainly hope that it will, but I think there's still a lot of the most popular games are shooters or games that take place like in outer space, like Halo 4 that I'm in as well. And I don't really play them much. I'm more into the game, performing it than playing it. So, and when we record it, oftentimes we're in isolation for video games. We're by ourselves. So sometimes I don't even know what the bigger cast is. So, I certainly hope it becomes a little more equal in the future, but I think now it's still pretty much driven with testosterone as far as I can tell.
Well, there are several games that you're in that has some amazing writing and humor. A good example, I think, is Brutal Legend that I think anybody can enjoy.
Oh yeah, that was a lot of fun.
So it's just a hilarious take on a genre of music. You don't have to be a guy or a girl to appreciate it. So it's just creative.
That studio that did that is usually does pretty wacky stuff.
Yeah, Double Fine.
Yeah, Double Fine and Tim Schafer.
Yeah, I
They
abs
did they did Psychonauts, didn't they?
Yeah, they did Psychonauts, they've done Costume Quest and Stacking, and their big thing now is their Double Fine Adventure because they went to Kickstarter and asked for like 300K or something, and they got 3 million, and so
Yeah. Well, it tells you what people love them.
I do love Tim Schafer. I strive every day to be like Tim Schafer if I can.
He's fun. He's wacky. I've met him. Good
Well,
guy.
that's technically a smaller studio in comparison to say, the people working on like Mass Effect or Halo 4 or Diablo. So, did you see a big difference working with that sort of studio versus a bigger one?
Well, they break it down. So, the voice part of it, is really isolated. So you'll have the director and me oftentimes. But well, like right now I'm working on a big EA game that I can't talk about. I wish I could, and I'm doing performance capture on it too. But even though it's Electronic Arts, they're so sweet. They're the nicest people in the world. And it's this huge, big organization, but it becomes this little family, the people that are doing the show. In that case, of course, because it's performance capture, the whole group of us are all together. And here are the people I warned you about. The plumbers are at the door. So I'm going to have to just take a second here and let them in and have the dog go in the crate. So I'll just be a second, okay?
Well, perfect. That'll be a great time for us to take a break here on 91.8 The Fan, but don't fret. Up next is Scandal with Spring Breeze, and our guest will be back in a few minutes as well. So keep it tuned to your favorite station, where you play everything you want and nothing you don't. Hey, everybody out there! You're still tuned to 91.8 The Fan, because if you weren't, I'd be incredibly sad. And so would my special guest, who I'm pretty sure is still alive. Someone invaded his house, but I'm pretty sure he's okay.
I'm fine. It was a necessary thing. My sink exploded the other day, and they're putting it back together now.
Exploded? What did you do to it?
Oh, you know how that happens when the garbage disposal fails and then all the water goes
Ah.
into the cabinets. It was a fun night.
I was thinking it was the bathroom sink. I'm like, what did you like? Is your
No,
like
it was the kitchen.
face hair so
No,
coarse?
I think I did it though because I have some loose leaf tea that I put in like a French press thing, and I usually put the coffee grounds. Like the fans really want to hear this. I usually put the coffee grounds down the garbage disposal, but I put tea leaves this time, and that was too much. I
Well,
think I did it.
well, now one fan will know at a convention to get you some tea.
There you go.
I'm just saying. But I was looking through a few of your roles, obviously before this interview, and I noticed that you're this pretty ugly guy in Diablo.
Yeah, Osmodan, he was great. He doesn't have any lips. I couldn't figure out how he talked, but we made it work.
Yeah, I was about to say his. I don't know how you react when you see a character like that. It's like, okay, here's your character. Just do an evil voice for this, and it's like, what is it?
Well, Asmodan was really an interesting way we developed the character because he started really with just sounds. Like he was, we even had a whole session where they took me down to the studio and they showed the video, and I actually vocalized to all of his movements. And then we kind of were building the character from that. And it was a super quiet character. They turned it up really loud so I would sound really menacing, but I was like almost whispering.
I mean, that's really cool because not only is the character terrifying, I can't get, I'm sorry, I just can't get over his looks. But, your voice together with that character is something to really be afraid of in a game. It's not just, oh, look, it's another monster, slash, slash, haha. It's literally like a big thing that'll probably kick your butt into, Canada.
I think sometimes because of the nature of my voice, they try to hire me for villains that really have to have an impact. Not just cartoony guys, but more realistic guys. And I had some acting training too. I went to the neighborhood playhouse school and studied with Sanford Meisner. And some of the people listening may have heard of him. He was a pretty famous acting teacher years ago. So I wasn't really trained to end up in video games or voiceover per se, but it really does apply. It makes it so much easier to portray these characters having the training I've had.
And now with Diablo, it's a very famous, game with a lot of legacy to it. When you found out you were going to be a part of something like this, and you couldn't talk about it, was it killing you on the inside?
Well, here's a weird story. When I was sort of in the middle of it, they came out with one of the cinematics, and the cinematic, the Black Soul Stone cinematic that I did with Asmodan was part of the game. And it came out, probably one of the first things they released from the game was a cinematic. So the character was released and the voice was released, but I have a very strict non-disclosure agreement with some of these games. You just can't be public about, because they have their own ways of marketing stuff and they want to be in control of that. And they don't want the actor running rogue and talking about it. But I thought, okay, the character's out, the voice is out. So I wrote to the legal department there at Blizzard and said, hey guys, it's out. Can I tell anyone I did it? They said, nope.
Oh.
Not till the game comes out. So I respected that. That's fine. But yeah, no, I really, there's a game I'm doing now for Electronic Arts. I would love to tell everybody about it, but they don't want to talk about it yet. So it comes out in March.
And that's fair. Like I understand why businesses need to do that, but at the same time, I want to shake some businesses and be like, they could promote it for you. Free promotion marketing. It's right there.
It's starting to move more toward that. They for a while they would just list our names on a list, even if we had a major role, and now they're starting to give us more specific credits. Um, it's funny on Halo 4 they actually made a mistake. I played a fairly major character and they forgot to put it in the credits. So they were nice enough there at the production company. They went back to the IMDb and they fixed it for me. That was nice of them.
Oh, that's really cool. Like
But
not
when you see the credit roll, my name's just in as additional voices. So I asked them if they would be nice enough to do it, and they did.
Yeah, you don't hear a lot of companies actually doing that. I mean, you don't even hear a lot of companies giving any of the products to the voice actors for themselves. So,
You know what though? I got to tell you, Blizzard. The public probably doesn't even know about this. They had a special day for the voice actors, and they brought us down to the Blizzard Studios in Irvine. They had a whole day for us. They made us a nice lunch, and they gave us like a whole big, huge bag of swag, and we signed for all the employees. If they wanted to bring their game to us to sign, and I thought that was really sweet of them. And they gave me a copy of the game.
I gotta give props to Blizzard for that one.
They're super sweet.
I haven't heard of a company doing that, so now they gotta get bumped up on my list of
I
top
haven't heard of
companies.
a company doing that either. And I've done like what 50 games, something like that.
I mean, I don't think they can beat my love of Tim Schafer or Hideo Kojima, but still higher than, Ubisoft and EA and a few others. I'm
Well,
just
there you go. You know what? I'm not going to say anything bad about either of those. I work for everybody. I'm very fortunate. Um, I do get a fair amount of work, and for the most part, people are actually very sweet. We're creating these great big huge fantasy worlds, these great big huge evil menacing characters, but it's not like that when we're working. They're just characters. We're just all we're just all people trying to get through the day. Generally in Hollywood, you'd be surprised. Everybody's pretty nice to each other, at least in the voiceover side of the business.
Yeah, and it seems like such a tight-knit community too. Like everyone seems to know everyone to some degree.
Yeah, it's true. I'm doing a new show that I can't talk about over for Disney, and starting on that in a couple of weeks. And it was all like people that I worked with before. So it's like, oh yeah, hey man, it's nice to see you again. And it's kind of like a group of friends after a while. You just get together for a different gathering or a different party.
Well, it's interesting too because a lot of the times when we go to conventions for the voice actors or the talent, it'll be like, "Oh my God, I haven't seen so and so in forever," even though they've worked on so many shows together, because they only have one person in the booth at one time.
Well, like I moved. I was based in Vancouver, Canada, for a long time, and many years ago. But in 2000, I moved down to Los Angeles, and I did a convention a couple years ago with Scott McNeil, and I hadn't seen him in years, even though we worked on Beast Wars together. So that was nice. Running into him
Scott
again.
is hilarious. I just have to say, and he has long flowing locks, and everyone has to make fun of that.
Yes, and he's king of conventions. He
Yeah,
is he
actually,
is out there.
we always see him in either Florida or Youmacon in Detroit. I don't know why he likes Florida so much, but Florida seems to be his favorite place.
Well, I just now started working with booking agents for conventions, so hopefully I'll be doing more of them. I haven't done very many so far.
Well, do you have any planned for 2013, or is it a little bit too early to talk about it?
Well, too early. I got a convention in North Carolina in August, but there'll be other ones too. That's the only one I have booked so far.
And is there a place where fans can keep up to date on that sort of thing? Like, do you announce that maybe on a Facebook or a Twitter or a website?
Yeah, I've got all of those. I've got a website, Sobolov.com. My entire family could come to me and say, "Hey, we want our website back," but I've had that since 1995, so nobody's ever said anything. But I always knew that someday they might, so I'm open to that. Sobolov's. So I got Sobolov.com. I have David Sobolov Voice Guy on Facebook. That's my fan page on Facebook. And my Twitter is Volobos, my last name backwards.
That sounds even eviler than your normal last name.
Volobos. Well, yeah, sometimes if I want to be stealth about something, I'll call myself Dmitry Volobos.
That's hilarious. Now and see now I just expect you to have a persona that just speaks in a Russian accent and bosses people around.
Well, sometimes. Um, there's been a couple of games where I had to do a Russian accent. I've just thought of a story. It's complete non sequitur, but it's in the discussion here, uh, in the theme of the discussion. Well, the first Call of Duty, they called me up on a Friday and said, "Hey, David, guess what? 4 of your pages are in German, and we're doing this Monday morning." Okay, I don't speak German. I'll figure that. They just figured, okay, David's a pro. He'll figure this out. So I brought a friend in who was a German speaker, and we worked all weekend on it. And I did the role, and it was kind of like a propaganda kind of thing. It was supposed to be World War II. And my friend, when the game came out, he played it, and he found the part where I was playing the German guy, and he said he fell off his chair laughing. He said, "Perfect German, but in an American accent."
Ah, that's funny.
So I got the words down, but obviously I didn't know it well enough to put an accent on it.
At least you actually had some words down and you weren't making up a language. You see that a lot in video games
I
nowadays.
I just did that on Halo 4. My part in Halo 4 was a made up language.
I have to wonder, is that easier or is that more difficult than, taking reference from an actual language? Or do they give you references of an existing language to kind of pull from?
Yeah, our language was based on Japanese, and we had one time. It's fine if you can improvise it and kind of make it sort of sound sort of pseudo Japanese, but which we got to do. But then the legal department again came in and go, you might be saying something in some language, and we don't have time to vet this, so it has to be exactly as written. And the fellow who created the language was a native Japanese speaker, and he took Japanese and just slightly changed it. And we had to stick to exactly what was there, and it took forever. And we wanted to make it sound good. It didn't only have to have those words, but it had to be acted, it had to make sense. So sometimes it would take up to 10 minutes per line to get it done.
Well, the Halo fan base is huge. Like I'm surprised, we don't have more Halo fans actually in the live chat right now. We have a lot of Call of Duty people going crazy. But I have to wonder with a game like Halo that pretty much defined a genre, do you ever kind of get starstruck at what you're involved in?
Well, it's cool to have that as a credit for sure. I was in Halo Wars as well, and that part was really cool. That was the Arbiter, and I love that part because they had an action figure. Anything that gives me a toy, I'm happy.
Does the toy talk though? That's the important question.
I don't know because I will not take it out of the bubble wrap,
Fair enough.
out of the package. It's in the package. A fellow I know who worked on Halo got that for me. He found it was an old. It's rare apparently, and I didn't even know it existed till like 3 or 4 months ago. And they sent it to me. That was really sweet of him. He just found it in the office. If anyone from Halo is listening, had a toy stolen. Sorry.
Send him more.
It's okay. It's okay.
Well, now, is for the listeners out there, are there any projects that you're working on or that have recently come out that you want to talk about and you're able to talk about?
Oh, sure, tons of stuff. And in fact, just so that I don't have a complete senior moment here, I'm going to go to the IMDb and see what I've got going. But I know I can say off the top of my head, there's a show called Kaijudo that I do on the Hub Network that I'm really proud of. And I play a creature with a heart of gold, Tetsurian Bob. He's known as Bob. He's known as Tetsurian, and that's something I'm really enjoying. And also Transformers Prime. My character Shockwave comes up a lot in the third season. That's coming up in a couple months. I think it starts airing in March.
So
So
all the fans know
that's
to
really
look
cool.
for that because
Yes.
that'll be fun to see again.
Yeah. I feel really proud that I was dropped into this iconic character that already had this 20-year life before I showed up. And I just hope the fans enjoy what I do with it because it's a whole new take on it.
And now for the listeners out there, we actually have a tradition here on 91.8 The Fan where we test your abilities as a voice actor. I'm sure you'll pass with flying colors.
Mm.
But you're free to refuse though if you're chicken. But basically we ask if you'd be willing to participate in a bump for us.
Oh, sure. Tell me what to do.
Basically we ask if you could say, "Hello, my name is," you insert your name. "I do this," you can insert characters or anything you want there. You can improvise. And you're tuned into 91.8 The Fan.
Okay, 1 second here.
Goodness piece of paper, I know it.
Yep. Just to make sure I get this all right. 91.8 The Fan.
And everybody gets to hear the takes live on air.
All right.
So whenever you're ready, you can go right for it.
Okay, this is David Sobolov. I am the voice of Shockwave on Transformers Prime, and you're listening to 91.8 The Fan.
See, that wasn't so hard. I knew you'd pass with flying colors.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks. I try to be professional.
You'd be surprised. I think over half of the people we've had on have either switched the numbers or they've messed up somewhere. But it's been great for the fans.
Oh, cool. Yeah, well, yeah, I'm never really, you know what? I do not hide these things. I'm not a one-take wonder. Sometimes it takes multiple takes. And Jamie Tomlinson, who's the director on Kaijudo, was also the voice director of Beauty and the Beast, the movie, years ago. He's like absolutely one of the top professionals in the business. And he directs Kaijudo like it's a piece of clay that he's molding. So, sometimes we'll jump in and there's no shame in it. Everybody in the cast goes through this. There'll be a line where he might want it done 6, 7, 8 times, but he's a perfectionist and you really see it on the show. So, we're all happy to do it. And it just takes, you aren't always going to whip through this stuff. And I don't really want to anyway. I want to make sure it's as good as it can be. The very first session I had for Diablo 3 was that Black Soulstone cinematic. And there's not a huge amount of lines, but it took 2 hours to do it.
Well, I can understand why, because a lot of those are reaction sounds and things like that, and heavy breathing. And I feel like to get those sort of sounds, you can't just, snap it on and snap it off. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, a lot of times those sounds that you hear, the efforts they're called, we do them at the end. Because especially if it's screaming or dying or something. There's this great director in Hollywood named Eric Weiss. And years ago, there used to be Universal Vivendi Games. I don't know if you guys remember that, and it merged with other things. It's gone now, but they had their own studio, and we go down there, and it was always a lot of fun to do the efforts with him because he's very playful about it. He goes, okay, David, we need to have like a fiery, like long stick that goes down your throat, and you're setting you on fire while you die. What would that sound like? So I'd have to just recreate this crazy mayhem. Or there's a truck falling on your head. What would that sound like as your head's being squished? So we would do that at the end of every session, and it was a lot of fun.
I can only see you going home and having horrible nightmares of the many deaths you've experienced.
The only time that it was really hard to shake it off, there was one gig I did. It was a game called 50 Cent. It was one of the 50 Cent ones, 50 Cent ones.
Hmm.
Why am I not remembering it? It was one of his games, and
Is it
it was,
Blood on the Sand, I think?
was that it?
There's Blood on the Sand and there's Bulletproof are the two that I know.
I am looking back in time here. 2005. Yep, Bulletproof is what I did.
Okay.
And the character was really racist. It was this guy who was actually like attacking and killing black people for sport. And I found it very offensive. And I actually was going to turn on my heels and leave because I saw the script, because they'll sometimes just hand you stuff when you arrive, right? Very rarely do you see video game stuff in advance. But, they're all African-American guys behind the glass, and that's what they wanted me to do. It's like, okay, if you want me to do this, I'll do this. But I had to sit there for about a half an hour. It was rough. It's like, this is so far away from who I am, but that's why they call it acting, right?
Yeah, pretty much. And I hopefully that doesn't haunt you. And
Nah, nothing
it,
haunts me.
at least the people there weren't offended by what they were working with. I mean,
Well, I don't know. I don't know if they were offended or not. I was, but you know what? There's a reason that they put ratings on these things, and I know like there's a lot of controversy right now. Like there's a lot of violence in this country, and is it caused by video games? And there's so many forms of entertainment in this country, and it's up to the parents to say, hey guys, you're under 18, you can't take a look at this. And then once you're an adult, you can make those decisions. And I got to go back to the parents and just say, if you don't want your kids to play these violent games, you don't have to let them. It's marked, it's rated M for mature. It doesn't belong in front of kids.
I agree completely. I used to work at a game store before I did this, and there would be a vastly big difference between parents who would be like, well, is it real blood or is it like purple alien blood or like, because it says it's rated M, but, why is it rated M? And there would be those parents. And then there'd be the parents who would be like, oh, I just let him play whatever he wants, but he understands this is fantasy and this is reality. And then you'd have the third set of parent who just wouldn't care.
Hmm.
They would just let them get whatever they wanted and they wouldn't ask questions about it. And I guess I was kind of lucky because I saw the prior two more than the latter. But those people do still exist, and it's a little bit sad that you see it.
I wish they would make more big release games that children can play. They got the Wii. There's a lot of fun stuff on the Wii for them, I imagine.
There are some good games out there for kids. I'm actually kind of struggling with my brother, ironically, right now, because he has a 3-year-old. He has 3 kids, and he gave his 3-year-old a Nintendo 3DS XL, which you're not supposed to give anyone under the age of 6. It's
Hmm.
it's right on the box, and I'm like, that's going to damage your eyesight. She doesn't need that. She doesn't know how to play Mario. She's 3 years old. Like
Yeah.
you could get her an old Game Boy with Tetris, or you could just wait until she's a little bit older. Like I'm all for
Well,
it.
like you said, it's up to the parents.
Yeah.
They can raise their kids any way they want. Well, you want to get somebody yelling at you in a supermarket or something? Try to tell them how to raise their kid. They don't want to hear it.
Hey, my mom was mean when I acted out in a supermarket, and I think all parents should be, and not just let them sit there and cry and throw things and everything else.
I won't go on about this story, but I occasionally in life have to use the video game voice. Usually, it's a voice that you would only use in a studio because the police will come. Uh, but no, I was in an In-N-Out burger joint in L.A. and there was this little girl sitting there, and her mother wasn't anywhere around, and I had to find her mom. So I just said, "Who is the mother of this child?" Like really, like some ridiculous voice that would make everybody be quiet, and it worked. And I found her, which was nice.
Well, bonus points for being at In-N-Out.
Yeah, it worked out. Worked out that day.
Well, since we're nearing the end of our time here today, I'm kind of curious. Is there any advice you want to give the listeners out there? Any wise words of wisdoms, dating
Oh,
advice, anything like that?
the biggest bit of advice I would say is that it's really easy to give up on your dreams, and you really can't. Don't let anybody squish your dreams because they will try. It took me a long time to get where I am. There were years when I was, eating peanut butter and jelly. But if you really, really want something and you don't give up, chances are you're eventually going to get it.
And I have to agree with that, 110% because I've been doing this for 3 years and I do it full time. So you can do
Awesome.
whatever you want to do if you actually work at it and not be lazy.
Well, it might take a few years, but nothing worthwhile ever came easily. Really,
Yeah, you got to
takes
keep
work.
getting back up.
Takes work. Hmm.
But thank you very much for this. This was a lot of fun, and I can tell from our
Yeah.
live chat that our listeners loved it as well. So, for anybody out there that missed any of this interview, don't fret. You can find it on the website within the next few days. So, keep your eyes peeled to 918thefan.com and your ears tuned to 91.8, where we play everything you want and nothing you don't.